Unaware his wife was the secret billionaire investor of his company, husband mocked her at dinner for being ordinary. What she did when she pulled out the ownership papers shocked the entire family. He didn't just embarrass her. He did it under chandeliers in crystal, at an upscale restaurant table filled with family and board members. With his assistant seated too close and a smile too bright, he raised a glass and laughed. "She's just a housewife." The room joined him. She held her wine, silent until the moment came. Because what Daniel never knew was this. The woman he mocked was the secret billionaire investor behind his company, the same ordinary wife who funded his dream through Aurora Capital. And when she stood, calm as winter light, and slid a black leather folder across the table, the room froze. Notarized shares, audit trails, ownership papers, every number a truth, every signature a mirror. The laughter died, whispers rose, faces turned. His assistant's chair inched back, and in that golden dining hall, respect changed sides. This is not just another story of betrayal. It is the quiet rise of a woman who chose dignity over noise, law over rage, and facts over pride. From the candlelit dinner where he mocked her, to the boardroom where she voted him out, to the rooftop sunrise where she rebuilt the rules. This is the journey of silence becoming power. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, her voice risks fading back into the room that laughed at her. Click subscribe to stand with every person underestimated, every partner dismissed, every heart that chose truth over applause. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Your city becomes part of her legacy. The morning began with the sharp hiss of a coffee machine and the soft hum of a piano somewhere in the background. Sunlight poured through the kitchen blinds, washing the countertops in a golden warmth that made everything look peaceful, almost perfect. But beneath that calm was something else, something unspoken. Anna Carter stood by the kitchen counter, one hand stirring coffee, the other scrolling through her laptop. The glow of the screen lit her face, catching the faint tiredness under her eyes and the quiet focus of someone used to thinking 3 steps ahead. The page open on her screen wasn't a recipe or an email. It was a secure financial dashboard labeled Confidential Holdings, Aurora Capital. Numbers moved like silent waves across the display, millions in quiet motion. Anna, 35, looked like the picture of simplicity light sweater, hair tied back loosely, small gold band on her finger. To most who saw her, she was just Daniel Carter's wife. A soft-spoken woman who smiled at board dinners, remembered birthdays, and never raised her voice. But before she married Daniel, she had been a financial analyst at one of the top investment firms in the city. Numbers were her language, logic, her rhythm, and Aurora Capital, the anonymous firm funding her husband's company, was her creation. The faint rumble of an engine outside pulled her back from the screen. She clicked the laptop closed in one fluid motion, just as Daniel's voice broke the silence. "Morning, sweetheart," he said, stepping into the kitchen. Daniel Carter, 38, tall, broad-shouldered, always impeccably dressed even before sunrise. His phone was glued to his hand, his tone casual but distracted. "Big day today, meeting with the mystery investor. If this goes well, we're talking expansion." He kissed her forehead absently, eyes never leaving the phone. Anna smiled faintly. "Coffee's ready," she said softly, sliding the mug toward him. "Perfect, thanks." He took a sip, grimaced slightly too hot, and set it down. "Wish me luck." "Always," she said. He was already halfway out the door when he turned back with a smirk. "If only our investor were half as predictable as you, honey." Anna's smile held steady, though it faltered for a heartbeat. "Maybe," she said gently. "They're not as far as you think." He chuckled, assuming it was a joke. "Cute. I'll call you after the meeting." When the door shut behind him, the house fell into silence again. Anna exhaled slowly, her hand resting on the laptop lid. Her eyes lingered on the coffee he'd left half drunk on the counter, a perfect symbol of Daniel. Always starting something, rarely finishing. She loved him once for that ambition, for the way he dreamed. Now she wondered if he remembered that his dream had been built on her quiet belief and her hidden money. As she reopened the laptop, a flicker of memory crossed her face. Flashback, 5 years earlier. A younger Anna sits in a cramped apartment beside Daniel, helping him draft his first business proposal. His eyes are bright with passion, hers with quiet trust. "I'll make this work," he says. "You'll see." She nods, smiling, and secretly transfers her first major investment under Aurora Capital, a name inspired by her mother's favorite constellation. She never told Daniel, not because she didn't trust him, but because she wanted him to succeed without feeling indebted. Back in the present, her reflection shimmers faintly in the dark screen. She touches her wedding ring, then the laptop lid, almost as if weighing which mattered more. The house clock ticks loudly. She walks to the window, watching Daniel's car disappear down the street. Her heart is steady, but her thoughts churn. She knows every figure in his company's accounts, every transfer, every partner, every lie he hasn't yet realized she already sees. Her phone buzzes a text from her old colleague, Liam. "Liam, audit results in. You might want to take a look. Discrepancies again in R&D account." Anna's thumb hovers over the reply button. She doesn't answer, just saves the message in a locked folder. Outside, the morning wind brushes the garden leaves against the window, whispering like a warning. She sits at the table, coffee untouched, laptop glowing faintly once more. The Aurora Capital dashboard opens again, her name hidden in legal layers of ownership, her power buried under his pride. She takes a slow sip from her cup, finally cold now, and whispers under her breath, "Maybe today's the day you meet your investor, Daniel." The words are calm, but the tone carries something deeper, an undercurrent of quiet irony, almost sorrow, because she knows that when Daniel walks into that meeting, expecting a faceless billionaire behind his success, he will never imagine it's his own wife. The soft piano fades as Anna closes the laptop again. The camera lingers on the reflected light of the screen against her eyes, a mix of intelligence and ache. The light flickers once, as if the truth itself is alive inside that machine. She turns toward the empty doorway, expression unreadable. For a brief second, the house feels too quiet, the calm too still. And just before the scene fades to black, the narrator's voice breaks through the silence. He thought he ran his company alone. What he didn't know was that his biggest investor shared his last name. A faint clinking of glass echoes from the counter, Daniel's unfinished cup tipping slightly, spilling a dark trail of coffee across the table. A subtle foreshadowing. The next dinner will stain more than the tablecloth. The scene opens with noise, glasses clinking, laughter echoing, forks scraping plates. The restaurant glows under chandeliers, and the sound is almost too bright, too polished. It's the kind of place where deals are made and egos are fed. At the center of the long table sits Daniel Carter, confident and loud, his charm filling the room like expensive perfume. To his left sits Anna, his wife, composed and quiet. Across from her, a woman with striking red lipstick and sharp eyes leans slightly toward Daniel. Lara Mason, his new assistant, introduced earlier to the family as a brilliant asset to the company. Lara is 30, ambitious, the kind of woman who knows how to listen with interest and laugh at the right moments. She's Daniel's assistant, but everyone at the table can sense there's more. Her glances are too familiar, her hand lingering on his arm a moment too long. Anna sits straight, her posture perfect, her dress simple, a soft ivory that glows under candlelight. She smiles politely, listening as Daniel boasts about his company's growth. The air smells of roasted steak and red wine, but beneath the surface, there's the faint sting of arrogance. "And our numbers have tripled this quarter," Daniel says, swirling his drink like a performer commanding applause. The board's ecstatic. "Honestly, without that investor backing us, I'd still be working out of a garage." Lara laughs lightly, resting her manicured hand near his. "You make it sound too humble, Daniel. You're the reason the company shines. Investors just follow success." He grins, pleased. "Exactly." Then turning to his family at the far end, he adds, "Not everyone understands how complex it all is. You need instinct for business." His sister, Marianne, soft-spoken and kind, looks toward Anna. "I think it's lovely that Anna supports you so much. You two balance each other perfectly." It's a sincere compliment, but Daniel ruins it with a laugh that slices through the moment. "Oh, Anna? She's just my good luck charm. A housewife with a golden heart, but business?" He shakes his head, chuckling. "She leaves that to me." The table bursts into awkward laughter. Even those who feel uncomfortable join in out of habit. Lara hides a smile behind her glass. Anna's hand stills around her wine. For a second, the glass trembles in her fingers, catching the candlelight. Her eyes meet Daniel's across the flickering flame. She doesn't speak. The silence inside her feels louder than the laughter around her. Daniel doesn't notice, or maybe he doesn't care. He leans closer to Lara, whispering something that makes her smile again. Anna breathes slowly, the sound of her heartbeat dull under the chatter. Her voice, when it comes, is calm. "Daniel," she says softly, "I do try to understand, you know. Maybe I'll surprise you one day." He waves a hand dismissively, the arrogance still thick in his voice. "Maybe one day you'll understand how complex finance works." A pause. Anna's gaze doesn't flinch. "Maybe sooner than you think." For a brief second, their eyes lock. The flicker between them feels like static tension no one else senses, but the audience can feel in the air. Marianne looks down awkwardly. Someone coughs. A waiter clears plates. The moment passes, but it doesn't fade. Anna forces a smile and stands slowly. "Excuse me," she says, pushing her chair back gently. "I'll just be a moment." As she walks away, the camera follows her reflection in the mirrors along the restaurant wall, one face after another, each version of her more distant, colder. Inside the restroom, she stops before the mirror and exhales, the faintest tremor in her breath. The light above hums softly. Her reflection stares back at her steady, unblinking. She sees the woman everyone calls ordinary, and beneath that, the woman who built an empire in silence. Her eyes harden, but not with anger, with clarity. She remembers a night years ago, Daniel sitting at their small dining table, head in hands, worrying over unpaid bills. She had smiled, told him not to lose hope, and transferred funds quietly through Aurora Capital to cover his first loan. He'd thanked her for believing in him. He never asked where the money came from. The memory fades. Anna smooths her dress, her composure flawless again. But her mind is no longer calm, it's awake. Back at the table, Daniel is laughing again, telling a story about an investor meeting gone wrong. Lara leans close, her hand brushing his under the tablecloth. Anna notices the gesture as she returns, her eyes flicking down once before she sits. She says nothing, not a word. Her face is a calm ocean hiding the storm beneath. The dinner drags on. Courses change. Toasts are made. But Anna's mind drifts elsewhere to numbers, signatures, and the quiet pulse of ownership papers resting in her office drawer at home. The same papers Daniel will soon wish he had read more carefully. When the waiter pours her another glass, she shakes her head. "No, thank you," she murmurs. "I have work to do later." Daniel laughs, not catching the meaning. "Work? Since when do you work, darling?" The others laugh again. Anna's smile barely moves. The flickering candle between them burns lower, its flame shrinking until it looks almost ready to die. The narrator's voice rises gently, cutting through the soft clatter of dessert plates and forced laughter. That night, she didn't cry. She began to calculate. As the camera pans down the length of the table, the candlelight flickers once, casting a brief shadow across Daniel's face, his reflection splitting in two in the glass beside him. A soft, uneasy silence fills the air. Somewhere, far away, a phone vibrates, a message unread, waiting for Anna at home. A name flashes across the unseen screen. Liam. Audit update. And the scene fades to black. By the next sunrise, the woman Daniel mocked would start an investigation that would change everything. The bedroom door slammed softly, but the silence that followed was deafening. The night outside was cold and restless, rain tapping gently against the window. Inside, shadows crawled along the walls, wrapping the room in a heavy stillness. Daniel stumbled in first, the scent of whiskey clinging to him. His tie hung loose, his laughter from dinner long gone. "Great night," he muttered, kicking off his shoes. "Investors love me." He dropped onto the bed without looking at Anna, his phone still glowing in his hand. Anna stood near the door, still in her dinner dress, her face unreadable. Her fingers brushed the back of a chair, then tightened until her knuckles turned white. She said nothing. The sound of his shallow breathing soon filled the room as he drifted into half-sleep. Moments later, he mumbled through a slur. "Lara gets me. Not like Anna." The words hit like glass shattering inside her chest. Her breath caught, but she didn't cry. Instead, her eyes hardened. reflecting the faint glow of the digital clock beside the bed. Midnight. Anna turned slowly toward the desk near the window. The light from her laptop blinked like a heartbeat. She sat down, opened it, and entered a password, a long, complicated string of numbers only she could remember. The screen came alive. Rows of figures, charts, and transaction histories flooded the display. It wasn't the first time she'd looked. She checked the ledgers of Carter Technologies, Daniel's company, the company she secretly owned through Aurora Capital. For months, something had felt wrong. Now she could see it clearly. Transfers that didn't add up. Payments to an unfamiliar name, LRS Consulting. At first glance, it looked harmless. A vendor, a contractor. But the initials caught her eye. LRS, Lara. Her pulse quickened. She clicked deeper, opening bank statements, timestamps, invoice attachments. Her background in finance took over like muscle memory. She began connecting the dots. Money meant for product development had been rerouted. Small amounts at first, then larger ones, hundreds of thousands. Daniel wasn't just careless. He was complicit. Anna leaned back, her chest rising slowly. The pain that had sat in her throat all night began to change shape, hardening into something colder, clearer. She opened another encrypted folder. Inside were her Aurora Capital records, proof of her majority investment. She compared ownership seals and signatures, each one bearing the quiet truth Daniel never knew. She controlled the company's foundation. The sound of Daniel's soft snoring filled the background. Her face softened for just a second, grief flickering through. She had loved this man once, enough to give up her career, her time, her dreams. She'd built him an empire in silence. And now he was selling pieces of it to his mistress. Anna whispered under her breath, "You thought I was ordinary. You never looked close enough." The rain outside grew heavier, streaking the glass with blurred reflections of the glowing numbers on her screen. She opened a secure chat and typed a message to Liam, her former colleague and trusted auditor. "Anna, run a trace on LRS Consulting. I need every document, every link to the company. Don't ask questions." Liam. "Understood." She stared at the blue check mark confirming delivery, then slowly closed her laptop. The faint light faded, leaving only her face in the dark, a mix of sorrow and resolve. As she turned off the lamp, Daniel mumbled something incoherent, rolling over. She watched him quietly, her expression neither angry nor broken, just distant, calculating. The camera closes in on her eyes. They no longer reflect the pain of betrayal, but the focus of a strategist. The narrator's voice cuts in, calm and steady. When love stopped being her reason to stay, truth became her reason to act. Lightning flashes outside, illuminating the documents still open on her desk. LRS, Aurora, Carter Technologies, all connected in one faint web of deceit. In the distance, thunder rumbles low, like an omen. By the next sunrise, she wouldn't just be a wife. She'd become an investigator, and Daniel's silence would be her first clue. The printer roared to life before the sun had fully risen. Pages slid out one after another, covered in black lines of figures and signatures. The sound was sharp, relentless like a storm of paper. The room smelled of ink and coffee. Anna Carter sat perfectly still in her private study, her eyes locked on the printed pages as they collected into neat piles. Every sheet held a truth she had once buried and a weapon she now intended to use. The morning light cut through the curtains, landing across framed photos on the shelf. A younger Anna with her father, a powerful man known for his quiet empire of investments. Her father's voice echoed faintly in her memory. "Power isn't loud, Anna. It's the hand that signs the paper no one else reads." A soft knock broke her focus. She closed her eyes briefly, gathering herself. "Come in." The door opened, and Robert Hayes, her longtime family lawyer, entered. He was in his early 50s, calm and meticulous, his gray suit pressed to perfection. Behind him walked Clara Vance, Anna's accountant, mid-30s, sharp-eyed, loyal since Anna's early analyst days. Robert placed a folder on her desk. "We've confirmed it," he said, sliding the papers toward her. "Through Aurora Capital, you own 51% of Carter Technologies. Legally, that gives you full control of company decisions." Clara nodded, her tone measured but firm. "We also traced the LRS Consulting account you mentioned last night. It's registered under Laura Mason's name. Payments totaled just under 400,000, all unauthorized transfers. Anna didn't flinch. Her eyes scanned the numbers, line by line, as the realization settled into a quiet certainty. "So," she said softly, closing the folder. "Lara and Daniel used my own company to fund their affair." Robert hesitated. "Do you want me to confront him? Or file the motion immediately?" Anna shook her head. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, the stillness before a wave breaks. "No, not yet. Timing matters more than anger. Let him think he's untouchable a little longer." Clara watched her carefully. "What's your next move?" Anna stood, walking to the window. The city stretched out beneath her sharp lines. Cold glass, the world Daniel believed he ruled. "We prepare everything quietly," she said. "An internal audit, legal documentation. The board doesn't need to know until it's too late." She turned back to them, the faintest smile touching her lips. "When he mocked me for being ordinary, he never imagined I could end his career with one signature." The printer spat out the final page. Anna gathered the stack and placed it into a black leather folder. Embossed in gold were the words, "Board meeting, confidential." Robert glanced at it, then at her. "He'll never see this coming." Anna's tone was steady, but her eyes carried quiet fire. "That's the point." The sound of her pen clicking echoed through the room as she signed the final document authorizing the audit. Each stroke of ink felt deliberate, like writing the first line of a verdict. As Robert and Clara left, Anna stayed behind, staring at the papers spread before her. Her reflection in the glass behind them looked calm, but her mind was racing, every betrayal, every laugh at her expense, every secret she had kept. Now the silence would speak louder than any argument. The camera lingered on her hand as she sealed the folder and slid it into her drawer. The faint thud of the wood closing was like a drumbeat marking the start of her quiet war. The narrator's voice cut in, low and deliberate. The woman he mocked for being ordinary was preparing a lesson that would echo in every boardroom. Outside, thunder rolled again, the same storm that began the night before, now moving closer. And while he slept soundly beside another woman, she began drafting the document that would end them both. The sound of clicking heels echoed sharply across the marble floor before the door slammed shut. Inside the glass-walled conference room of Carter Technologies, tension simmered beneath polished smiles. The table was long, glossy, and spotless, except for the stack of confidential documents placed neatly in the center. Lara Mason, Daniel's assistant and secret mistress, leaned over the table, her perfume lingering in the air like a warning. Her tone was sweet but calculated. "Daniel, this transfer will help you," she said, her voice smooth, confident. "Moving some assets into LRS Consulting will protect your profits before tax season hits." She adjusted her blazer, the silver chain around her wrist glinting in the light. "It's just smart business. Every CEO does it." Daniel sat across from her, brows furrowed, his pen rolling between his fingers. "You're sure this won't raise red flags?" "The auditors have been restless lately." Lara smiled, walking behind his chair. "Relax," she whispered, resting a hand on his shoulder. "It's my company. I'll handle the paperwork. You'll just sign the authorization. Simple as that." He looked up at her, hesitant but eager for her approval. He'd always liked how she made him feel powerful, wanted, understood. "You really think this will help us?" he asked. "It'll help you, Daniel," she replied softly, her tone slipping between charm and control. "And when your investor finally reveals themselves, you'll look like a genius who's doubled profits overnight." She slid the papers toward him, her manicured nails tapping the signature line. The camera zoomed in on the moment, the hesitation, the pride, and finally the sound of his pen scratching across the paper. Outside the conference room, through the tinted glass, a man sat quietly in a small break area pretending to scroll through his phone. He was Liam Brooks, Anna's trusted investigator. Mid-30 seconds, precise and discreet, he had been hired through Anna's lawyer after the audit authorization. His phone camera clicked once, then again capturing each signature, timestamp, and document code. Behind his calm exterior, his mind was racing. He'd been a forensic analyst once, and even without reading the papers, he recognized the layout. A disguised asset transfer, perfectly designed to hide fraud under consulting expenses. Inside, Lara was laughing now, leaning close to Daniel. "You'll thank me later," she said, voice dipped in sugar. Daniel smiled, tucking the papers into a briefcase. You're brilliant, Lara. I don't know what I'd do without you. Outside the glass, Liam's reflection flickered against the conference door as he sent a photo file to Anna's encrypted inbox. He added only one line. Liam. He signed. Money trail confirmed. Moments later, Anna's phone buzzed in her quiet office miles away. She opened the message, her eyes calm but sharp as she scrolled through the images. Every document, every number, every proof she needed. Her lips curved slightly, not in joy, but in quiet satisfaction. Every lie he told, she whispered, is now a number in my file. Back in the conference room, Daniel and Lara clinked their glasses of champagne, celebrating what they thought was a victory. Behind them, the reflection of the city skyline shimmered against the window, divided by faint streaks of rain. As the camera lingered, a distant thunder rolled again, soft, slow, and ominous. Lara leaned close to Daniel, murmuring something in his ear that made him laugh. But in the reflection on the glass behind them, the lens of Liam's hidden camera glowed faintly red, still recording. The narrator's voice entered, low and deliberate. He thought he was building an empire with his lover. He didn't know his wife was already building his downfall. The screen faded slowly to black as the faint sound of a file being uploaded echoed digital proof moving quietly toward its final destination. By the rending, the time he realized the walls were closing in, she'd already built them herself. The night began with the fierce rhythm of rain slamming against the windows. Lightning flashed across the city skyline, briefly illuminating the polished marble of Anna Carter's dining room. The storm outside was loud, almost theatrical, but inside, everything was calm, deliberate, and eerily quiet. Anna sat alone at the long dining table, the same one that had witnessed years of family dinners, laughter, and quiet betrayal. In front of her, a stack of ivory envelopes waited to be sealed. Each one was marked with gold-embossed letters. Carter Technologies, Anniversary Celebration. Her fountain pen moved with purpose, her handwriting elegant, unwavering. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. Every stroke of ink was a decision made long before tonight, a move in a game she had already won in silence. At the head of the table sat her leather folder labeled Ownership Papers, Aurora Capital. Its edges gleamed faintly under the chandelier's light, the gold lettering cold and final. The door opened softly behind her. Robert Hayes, her lawyer, stepped in, umbrella dripping rain onto the floor. "You're working late," he said, removing his coat. "Are you sure about this? It'll be public." Anna didn't look up. "Yes," she said. "That's the point." He sat across from her, studying her face. "You could simply file the documents, take control quietly. No one would have to know." She paused, sealing another envelope with a golden wax stamp. The seal pressed down with a soft click. "I don't want to destroy him in anger, Robert," she said calmly. "I want the truth to humiliate him on its own." The lawyer leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Then you've chosen the perfect stage." Anna placed another invitation beside the growing pile. The guest list was carefully crafted: family, board members, investors, even a few close friends of Daniel's, all the people who had heard him boast, all the ones who had laughed when he called her ordinary. "The company's anniversary dinner," she murmured. "That's when I'll show them who really built it." Robert's eyes softened. "Your father would be proud of how you've handled this," she smiled faintly. "He always said patience is power. I used to think he meant waiting for success. Now I understand he meant waiting for the truth." The storm eased for a moment, and the city lights flickered beyond the window. Anna gathered the sealed invitations into a silver tray, her movements precise. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass, calm, composed, unstoppable. As Robert stood to leave, she said quietly, "Send the audit results to my private account. I'll bring the rest to the dinner myself." He nodded. "And Daniel?" Anna's voice was almost a whisper. "He'll get his invitation last." The scene slowed. The camera lingered on her hand as she slid the final envelope into a golden envelope box. Her eyes lingered on it for a second longer, not with anger, but with certainty. The narrator's voice entered softly, layered over the sound of distant thunder. The woman he mocked for being ordinary was preparing a dinner that would rewrite their history. Anna stood, closing the folder marked Ownership Papers, and placed it carefully into her handbag. The faint hum of the rain returned, as if the world outside already knew what was coming. As she turned off the dining room light, The reflection of the city skyline gleamed across the window, tall, cold, and waiting. The next time they dined together, every smile at the table would shatter. The chandeliers blazed with gold light, reflecting off crystal glasses and polished silverware. Laughter rippled through the grand dining hall of the Royal Meridian Hotel, where the air carried the smell of expensive wine and quiet arrogance. Every seat around the long mahogany table was filled. Family, investors, board members, and executives all gathered to celebrate the 5th anniversary of Carter Technologies. At the head of the table stood Daniel Carter, dressed in a dark, tailored suit, eyes gleaming with confidence. His arm brushed briefly against Laura Mason, seated beside him in a crimson dress that drew glances from more than one guest. The image was perfect: the successful CEO, the devoted wife beside him, and the glamorous assistant who seemed just a little too close. But something in the air was different tonight, a stillness beneath the chatter. Anna Carter, seated quietly across from Daniel, had never looked calmer. Her ivory gown shimmered softly under the lights, her hair swept up elegantly. There was no trace of nervousness, only a controlled serenity that unsettled anyone who looked too long. Daniel tapped his glass, and the room quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began with his signature grin. 5 years ago, Carter Technologies was just an idea in a small apartment. Tonight we stand as one of the most promising firms in the country. Applause erupted. He lifted his glass higher. But none of this would be possible without the mystery investor who believed in us, whoever they are. He laughed, expecting everyone else to join. They did. The sound rolled like thunder until it reached Anna, who sat perfectly still, hands folded on her lap. Her smile was small, knowing, almost too calm. Lara leaned in, whispering something to Daniel. He chuckled again, unaware that the woman he was mocking was the very foundation beneath his success. Then as the laughter began to fade, Anna slowly rose from her seat. The movement drew every eye toward her. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft but firm enough to slice through the hum of the room. "That would be me." Silence fell instantly. Forks stopped midair. Conversations died. The air froze. Daniel blinked, confused. What do you mean?" Anna met his gaze. "I'm the investor you've been thanking all these years. Aurora Capital is mine." A ripple of murmurs swept through the table. Laura's smile faltered. Daniel laughed weakly, searching for support in the faces around him. "You're joking, right?" Anna's tone didn't waver. "Do I look like I'm joking?" She reached into her bag and placed a black leather folder on the table, the same one that had been waiting for this moment. The golden lettering gleamed under the chandelier. Ownership papers, Aurora Capital. Gasps filled the room as she opened it with quiet precision. Inside were notarized documents, signed and sealed proof of her 51% ownership of Carter Technologies, along with audit reports and evidence of financial misconduct. Anna nodded slightly toward Robert Hayes, her lawyer, who stood discreetly near the back. He stepped forward, expression unreadable, and began distributing the documents to the board members seated nearby. The whispering grew louder: disbelief, shock, confusion. Daniel's voice cracked as he leaned forward. "You can't be serious." Anna looked at him, her expression calm, but her words cut clean. "I was serious the day I believed in you. You stopped deserving that a long time ago." Laura's face went pale. Her hand trembled slightly as she pushed her chair back. She understood before anyone else her name was on those documents too. The evidence tied her directly to the fraudulent consulting firm. Her eyes darted to Daniel's, but he was too stunned to notice. Across the table, one board member cleared his throat awkwardly. "Mr. Carter, the audit indicates unauthorized transfers. This could mean embezzlement." Daniel's composure cracked. "This is ridiculous. She's trying to ruin me." Anna's gaze remained steady. "No, Daniel, you ruined yourself when you forgot who believed in you." For a moment, the only sound was the faint clicking of cameras. Reporters in the corner, invited under the guise of company publicity. Their lenses captured everything. Daniel's disbelief, Laura's guilt, Anna's poise. Anna turned slightly toward the crowd, her voice steady and controlled. "I invested because I believed in what this company could become, but I also believe in accountability." She paused, her eyes meeting Daniel's one last time. "Tonight, I reclaim what was always mine." The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Daniel sank back into his chair, speechless, his face pale under the harsh lights. Lara slipped away quietly, head bowed, her heels echoing down the marble hall. Anna closed the folder slowly, sealing the end of his illusion with the same calm precision she had used to build it. The narrator's voice entered softly, each word deliberate. The woman he mocked for being ordinary had just rewritten his legacy. The sound of applause began not for Daniel, but for Anna. A quiet, respectful wave that grew as realization spread across the room. Anna turned toward the window, the city lights glimmering in her eyes. For the first time in years, she looked free. Then her lawyer leaned close and whispered, "There's one more detail. Mrs. Carter tomorrow's court summons." Her calm expression didn't change. She simply nodded. The screen lingered on her reflection in the window power, peace, and the faint glimmer of sorrow. By morning, his empire would crumble, and her silence would be the sound of justice. The boardroom was tense from the moment the door closed. The morning light spilled through the tall glass windows, harsh and cold, cutting across the long oak table like a spotlight. Every chair was filled company executives, lawyers, and auditors, their expressions a mix of confusion, discomfort, and anticipation. At the head of the table sat Anna Carter, dressed in a sharp black suit, her presence calm but commanding. The same. People who once looked past her now couldn't meet her eyes. Across from her, Daniel Carter slumped in his chair, eyes bloodshot from a sleepless night. The faint sound of camera shutters echoed from the hallway. The press already knew something was happening. The room smelled faintly of coffee and tension. Papers shuffled, voices whispered. Then Anna spoke quiet, steady, devastating. "This emergency meeting," she began, "concerns evidence of financial misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty by the company's chief executive officer, Mr. Daniel Carter." A ripple of whispers followed. Daniel straightened, voice rough. "You can't be serious. You're making a mistake, Anna." Her gaze didn't waver. "The mistake was trusting you to protect what I built." She nodded toward Robert Hayes, her lawyer, seated beside her. He rose, opening a folder filled with documents marked confidential. Audit report. His voice was professional, unemotional. "Our forensic investigation uncovered unauthorized transfers totaling $400,000 to an external firm, LRS Consulting, owned by Miss Lara Mason. We also have evidence of falsified expense reports and concealed profits." Gasps filled the room. Someone muttered, "Lara Mason? That's his assistant." Daniel slammed a hand on the table. "You think I'd risk everything for?" He stopped himself, eyes darting to the faces around him, to the people who no longer looked at him with admiration but pity. Robert continued, "Under Section 14 of the Corporate Ethics Code, this constitutes fraud and conflict of interest. As majority shareholder, Mrs. Carter has called for an immediate vote to remove Mr. Carter from his position as CEO." Daniel's face drained of color. "You can't do that. This company is mine." Anna's tone was cool, surgical. "No, Daniel, it's ours. But only one of us kept it honest." The board members exchanged uncertain looks, then, one by one, began to nod. A motion was passed. Hands were raised. The vote was unanimous. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument could have been. Daniel sat frozen as the words left Robert's mouth. "Effective immediately, Mr. Daniel Carter is removed as Chief Executive Officer of Carter Technologies." Lara wasn't present, but her name appeared again as Robert slid another document forward. "Miss Mason is to be included in the formal investigation. Legal proceedings will begin within 48 hours. Daniel's voice broke. "Anna, please, don't do this. You're destroying everything." Anna looked at him for a long moment, not angry, not cold, just distant. "No, Daniel, you did that yourself. I'm just cleaning what's left." He opened his mouth again, but no words came. The man who once filled rooms with confidence now looked small, fragile, a shadow of the empire he'd boasted about. Anna closed her folder gently, as if ending a meeting rather than a marriage. "This session is adjourned." The sound of chairs sliding back filled the silence, followed by the slow click of her heels as she stood. Her lawyer gathered the documents. The executives avoided Daniel's eyes as they filed out. The camera lingered on Daniel, still seated, staring blankly at the table. His reflection in the polished surface was warped, broken. Cut to his office, the nameplate, Daniel Carter, CEO, being removed from the door. A box of personal belongings sits half-filled on his desk. A photo of him and Anna at their wedding, a company award, a silver pen. As the box is carried out, the sound of a gavel echoes faintly in the background, a symbolic sound overlay of justice being served. Anna watches from the hallway, her face expressionless. Yet in her eyes, there's a quiet ache, the kind that comes not from vengeance, but from truth finally spoken. The narrator's voice enters softly, almost like a closing note. Her silence became her sentence and his downfall. The camera pans out through the glass wall, showing Daniel's empty office and Anna's steady reflection watching from outside, two sides of the same story, now divided forever. But justice, once set in motion, never stops, and by evening, one final truth would still come knocking. The sound of rain filled the marble lobby like soft applause from the heavens, steady, endless, cleansing. The once grand building of Carter Technology stood quieter now, stripped of its noise and pride. The logo on the glass doors gleamed faintly, but the man who had once stood beneath it with confidence was a shadow of himself. Daniel Carter sat alone on a lobby bench, his suit wrinkled, his tie loose, a folder clutched in trembling hands. For weeks, he'd avoided this moment, too proud, too ashamed. But now, desperation had replaced ego. He needed to see her, needed to say the words he should have said long ago. The elevator chimed. Its mirrored doors opened with a whisper. Anna Carter stepped out, graceful and calm, her presence commanding even in silence. She wore a tailored gray suit, elegant yet simple, her expression unreadable. Two security guards stepped aside as she approached, but she waved them off gently. Daniel stood abruptly, his breath catching. Anna? Her name came out, broken, almost pleading. She stopped a few feet from him. The distance between them felt heavier than ever, not just physical, but made of years of trust broken and love wasted. I didn't know, he blurted, voice shaking. I swear, Anna, I didn't know it was you. I was stupid. Her eyes softened, but not with sympathy, with understanding. No, she said quietly, her tone even and precise. It wasn't stupidity, Daniel. It was disrespect. He looked down, shame swallowing his words. I was blinded by pride, by everything. I thought you didn't understand what I was doing. Anna stepped closer, just enough that he could see the steadiness in her eyes. I understood more than you ever imagined. I understood how you treated people you thought were beneath you, how easily you traded respect for admiration. Daniel's throat tightened. I lost everything, he said, his voice breaking. The company, my reputation, even Lara left. I have nothing left, Anna. She tilted her head slightly. You still have the one thing I can't give back, time to learn from it. He blinked, his hands trembling around the folder. Can you ever forgive me? Anna's answer was soft, deliberate. Forgiveness isn't something I owe you, Daniel. But peace, that's something I can choose. She pulled a pen from her folder and signed the last page of his severance agreement. The sound of the pen scratching across the paper was final, sharp, like the closing of a book. She slid it toward him. This ends everything, she said calmly. You're free to start over, away from what you destroyed. He took the paper, staring at her signature, then at her face, the same face he had once dismissed as ordinary. Now, it was the face of someone untouchable, someone who didn't need revenge to win. She had already risen above it. He whispered, You were always smarter than me. Anna gave a faint smile, not smug, not cold, just sad. No, Daniel, I was never trying to be smarter. I was just trying to be respected. She turned then, her heels echoing softly against the marble floor. The glass doors ahead reflected her figure, straight, composed, radiant against the city's gray morning light. Daniel's reflection behind her looked smaller, fading into the background like the echo of an old mistake. As she stepped through the lobby doors, the wind caught her hair, carrying a faint scent of jasmine, the same perfume she wore on the night of their first date. It lingered briefly before fading into the pouring rain. Daniel stood frozen, eyes glistening. He whispered to himself, I never saw who she really was. Outside, Anna walked under her umbrella through the soft drizzle, her expression calm. Behind her, the building his empire stood tall but hollow. The woman he'd once called ordinary had taken everything from him without raising her voice, without shouting, without revenge born of rage. Only quiet justice. The narrator's voice entered, measured, and poetic. She never raised her voice. She raised her value. The camera followed Anna's steps as she disappeared into the city crowd, a symbol of quiet strength, walking toward her new life. As the rain grew heavier, Daniel's severance papers fluttered from his trembling hand to the floor, her signature glowing faintly under the lobby lights. But as she left that building behind, another truth waited for her, one she never expected to face. The wind was sharp and cool on the rooftop of Carter Technology's headquarters, carrying the scent of rain and the first light of dawn. The city below began to stir, cars humming faintly, windows flickering awake one by one. Golden sunlight cut through the fading clouds, painting the skyline in amber and rose. It was the same city Anna Carter had watched for years through her kitchen window, back when she was the quiet wife of a man who thought she was invisible. Now, she stood at its peak. The company name glimmered behind her in steel letters, her reflection shining faintly against them. She wore a crisp white suit, her hair neatly pinned, a folder tucked under her arm. Every movement was deliberate, steady. The storm that had once surrounded her was gone. In its place was peace, silent, powerful peace. The door behind her opened softly. Clara Vance, her trusted accountant and now chief financial officer, stepped out with a cup of coffee. "You've been up here since before sunrise," she said gently. Anna smiled faintly. "I used to wake up early to make coffee for someone else," she said, looking at the horizon. "Now I wake up for myself." Clara joined her at the railing, glancing at the view. "The board finalized the new policy drafts," she said. "Ethics, equal pay, whistleblower protection, everything you suggested." Anna nodded. "Then it's time to make it official." She handed Clara the folder and watched as the wind caught a few loose pages, fluttering them toward the light before Clara gathered them again. "You've done it, Anna," Clara said softly. "You rebuilt what he tried to own." Anna looked out over the city again, her voice calm and reflective. "He wanted the world to see me as ordinary," she said slowly. "I only had to show them the truth." Her tone carried no bitterness, no triumph, only truth. A pause settled between them, filled only by the sound of the wind and distant city life below. Anna closed her eyes briefly, feeling the warmth of the sunrise on her face. In that light, she didn't look like a woman who'd won a war. She looked like someone who had simply returned to herself. Inside, through the rooftop glass, employees were beginning to fill the lobby below, new faces, new energy. On the giant digital display in the main hall, a message appeared under the company logo. "Integrity before ambition, a new era for Carter Technologies." Anna watched it from above, her reflection overlapping the message like a ghost of the past, turning into its author. Her phone buzzed once in her pocket, a message from her lawyer, Robert. Case against Daniel and Lara settled. Both accepted full accountability. No further contact required. She read it, exhaled slowly, and turned off the screen. For the first time in years, she felt no anger, no ache, only release. Clara smiled quietly beside her. "What will you do now?" Anna looked toward the horizon, her eyes soft but bright. "Live," she said. "Not for revenge, not for approval. Just live." The camera slowly pulled back the rooftop, the skyline, the light growing stronger. Anna stood still, a calm figure against the awakening city, a symbol of what it means to rise without rage, to win without shouting. The narrator's voice entered one last time, steady and reverent. She didn't rebuild her life to prove him wrong. She rebuilt it to remember who she was before he made her forget. Anna turned toward the glass door, ready to step back into her new world. Before she left, she paused for one last glance at the sun cresting the horizon. The golden light touched her face, illuminating every line of grace and strength she had earned through silence, through patience, through truth. A faint smile curved her lips. "Every dawn begins with darkness," she whispered, "but not every darkness ends without light." She walked back inside as the camera lingered on the rising sun over the city. The same light that had deafened, once poured into her small kitchen inn. Anna's story reminds us that silence is not weakness, it's focus. That dignity can be the loudest form of revenge. And that the truth, when revealed with patience and grace, doesn't just destroy lies, it rebuilds power. She never needed to shout to be heard. The truth spoke for her.